Hello, people of the free world. Now, today we're going to be talking about something kind of interesting, in my opinion, and that's the idea of why is it so hard to do the right thing? If you look back in history, you'll see people doing horrible, awful things, whether it be slavery, sexism, racism, or homophobia, and you're probably thinking, why? And if you're not, you're probably thinking to yourself, well, that's just what happened. It was a different time. I feel like this is honestly a lazy excuse that lets people in the past skate away with doing horrible things and lets old people skate away with still having these horrible thoughts and disrespecting people. Now, am I to say that I'm a perfect bastion of morality? No, obviously not. Whether it be 20 years, 30 years, 100 years, 1,000 years from now, someone's going to look back at my life, our lives in general, and say, these are the dumbest, most awful people to have ever exist in the entirety of the world. And that's just something that's going to happen. There's nothing we can do about that. That's just what the fact is. But the question is why? Why does it happen? And the answer to that, it isn't the idea that it's a different time. The real answer is it's easy. It's easy. These are people other than yourself. You don't have to think about them. You don't have to be empathetic. You don't have to put yourself in their shoes. And even then, if people are empathetic to others, what really makes it so that you don't change your mind and that you aren't different is that society itself is already ready to disrespect these people, put them in bad positions, put them in bad lights. Is that when we're talking about this stuff, we have to realize that it's not a simple fact of you are bad. And it's understandable to know you should know that you're bad. You should know that you're not morally perfect. You should know that what you're talking about or what you're doing is bad. But what's important to realize is that even if you try to break away from these thoughts, other people will try to take you back in. Now, if you are someone who watches the news, now I'm not gonna lie, I'm really biased, but I hate Fox News. They're a right-wing news network in America, if you don't know. And what's really important is that you read between the lines and you will understand why people who have these horrible thoughts and don't know what they're talking about would be susceptible to the tricks and the mind games that they're playing. Now, say that you were someone who didn't like people of other races, okay? And you watch the news, and they don't say it outright, but they're basically blaming these other races. Now, whether they be calling uh, immigrants criminals, and it's not like when you watch it, you have to pay attention, and it may be hard for you to notice if you're not someone of color, and that's understandable because you don't really have to watch out for it when you're talking about yourself. But when you're watching Fox News, you'll be looking and you'll see that they're talking about DI, and they don't say it outright, but it's obvious who they're talking about. They say these DI hires, they're ruining everything, and because they're not, and when you say DI hire, that's short for diversity and inclusion. So obviously that doesn't mean white men because that was the whole point of diversity and inclusion. And when you're talking about immigrants, that's obviously not white people, even though there's other kinds of immigrants. They're obviously only talking about Hispanic people. And then there was this one time that they talked about the green M&M, and she had on shoes instead of high heels, and she wasn't as sexually charged as she used to be. So when you're trying to escape these thoughts of hatred, of anger, you're gonna get put back into it. There's different news sources or people that you should trust telling you that these people are awful. So it's it's hard to do the right thing. The president himself even there was a crash in America, if you don't know. there was a plane crash. A Black Hawk crashed into an airplane. And after that, even before we knew the identities, races of the pilots, which it shouldn't matter at all, Donald Trump came out and said it was DEI. And then someone asked, how could you know that? He said it's common sense. Obviously, that's very disrespectful, and people jump to the conclusion of black people, you would assume. And I will even, well, after I come home from work, I will even come back and I will bring links to a video where this is said. But if you go into the comments of certain videos before the identity of this pilot was released, she is a white woman, which shouldn't matter, but we're talking about it, so DEI, so it does matter. It was a white woman. But what people were saying is that it was a trans woman. Well, I don't usually make the distinction, but it's important right now. It was a naturally born white woman who was the one of the three pilots. Now there was two other pilots on the helicopter. That's important to talk about. But yeah, so when you try to escape these ideas, it's not just you. It's society. It's a societal issue. You like even back then. I hate them. Trust me. I hate them. I hate anyone who doesn't understand the idea that people of color deserve whatever they deserve. But you go back into the past. What do you think they were doing? They were separating people. And obviously, if you separate someone and you look at yourself and it's clean, it's pristine, and then you look at what they have, and maybe you're young, maybe you don't understand that they're put in this predicament. You look at them, they're poor, they're broke, they don't have any family members because at the time they uh they couldn't they couldn't segregate black people anymore, so they segregated so it was more rich and poor, and they made it so that black people were more likely to be poor. So you look at them, they're poor, they are drugged out, and you think to yourself, well, I thought this idea already. I see this. So you're not gonna change anything. It's hard to do the right thing, not just because you're ignorant. And it's true, you are ignorant if you know. There's a lot of ignorance in the world. It's not just you, it's also me. But when you're looking and you're deciding that you should make a change, the entire world is based on a system of disrespecting people, so there's a lower class, so you don't help them out and you instead help the people that are already in power, whether it be rich people or just people that are different than them in general. You it's hard. It's hard. I'm not gonna say that I really don't care for these people. I don't care for slave masters at all. I'm not gonna say that. I'm not making any sort of I'm not making any sort of excuses for them. And honestly, I really don't think this is a good excuse at all. It's really just something that's a part of the bigger problem. When you look at these different time periods, they sneak in these small, weak ideas, and then it grows and it grows and it grows. So obviously, when we're talking about the past and we're talking about people being awful, it's not just a single moral thing that people in the past were just worse. It's the fact that their societies were built off of profiting off of or disrespecting or damaging people that were seen as or created as lower than them. And then these awful thoughts and awful ideas were strengthened and reinforced by media or great leaders or just other people in their life. And I feel like that's something that's important to think about when we're talking about the current time and day. A lot of people are going to say, like, you know, it's not just that young men are worse than they were. The truth of the matter is that young men are being tricked and made to think these things. And then when they're told these people are worse than you, they agree because it'll feel like they're benefiting. So Yeah, that's just my ideas on why is it so hard to do the right thing. So hard to do the right thing because nothing's really motivating you to do the right thing. The only thing in your benefit is to the only thing in your benefit is to do the wrong thing and is to vote against others. And it's harmful and it's dangerous, but that's what the truth is. So if you have some opinions, maybe you could share them. And this is me, signing out. Goodbye to the free world or whatever.